Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters Transfer Special podcast. My name is Kris. You may well have heard from me earlier on today. We did hot off the heels of doing a English breakfast football podcast earlier on, but now we're back to talk a little bit of transfers. As I'm sure all of our listeners will be aware by now, the transfer deadline day finished or came to a close. The deadline on Monday, and all of our relevant leagues have been doing a little bit of business. Probably not quite as much as we expected them to do, but excluding Serie, of course. I feel sorry for John. We'll come to him in a minute. But there has been some moves, some good, some bad. So we thought we'd do a little special roundtable podcast, just talking transfers, and get a little bit of an update from our relevant leagues and see what business has been done. So, Drew, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with the Bundesliga because it was quite a quiet window, particularly for the top clubs. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all of our hipsters. I'm going to start with you, Drew, about a couple of signings you want to pick out that you think will be very good signings, and a brief bit about why, and then we'll have a look at maybe what you think might not work out and the reasons why. So, let's have your pick of some of the better deals in the Bundesliga window.
Sure. Just want one at a time, or do you want me to list all three and then let's say why?
Let's go one at a time.
Okay. I'll start with Bruno Enrique. He went from Goiás to Wolfsburg. Timely, honestly. He can play center forward. He can play left or right side of a front three also. And with Bas Dost going out injured for quite a bit of time, they're still reeling after losing Kevin De Bruyne. They haven't been the same in attack, so it gives them more attacking options. Honestly, and I think that's kind of what they need right now. Especially, they could probably do with a little bit more creativity also, as well as someone who can score goals who isn't Bas Dost or Max Cruz. So I think all around, it's actually a very, very good signing. The fee was undisclosed, however, so who knows how much they spent. But Wolfsburg actually are struggling financially, so I can't imagine it was more than maybe 5 or 6 million euro. But he should settle. I think Wolfsburg have quite a few Brazilians as well, so it'll be easier for him to transition to life in Germany. So I think he'll be okay. I think that's actually a pretty decent signing. He's only 25 also, so it's not just a signing for the moment. He can probably give them a couple good years also.
One to keep an eye on for sure. So that's one. Give us another one that you think will be a success.
This might be a little out of left field or random, but I went with Alfred Finnbogason, the Icelandic international. He went on loan for us this season from Olympiacos to Augsburg. As I was talking to Tom about it before you added this in, Augsburg's leading scorer this season is right back Paul Verheij, the Dutch international. He has 5 goals. Bobadilla only has 3. Koo only has 3. Esvine only has 3. So they're struggling to get goals. And I've mentioned before in a normal pods that for me they're looking much, much better. But if they were going to avoid relegation, they needed to find a source of goal scoring. And Finnbogason struggled since he left here in Wien, where he was scoring for fun there. But he struggled in Spain. He struggled at Olympiacos to score goals. But with the Euros coming up, I expect him to give 150%, looking to get into the Icelandic team for the Euros this summer. So I think they're trying to bank on that. Maybe him coming in. He says he wanted to be there in his interview. He couldn't wait to play in the Bundesliga. So I think it might be one of those kind of under the table kind of deals that you wouldn't expect to work, but I think he actually might get some goals for them.
Interesting. And give us one more that you think will be decent bit of business, and again, all the clubs involved.
I went with Sinan Kurt. I was shocked when Hertha actually pulled that off. He came from Bayern in, full deal. Honestly, though, it's I don't know if it's how much time he's gonna get this year. But with Vidal Ibisevic and Salman Kalou both on the wrong side of 30, and Haraguchi on the right wing, not really doing all that much from an offensive standpoint, he might see some time this season. But moving forward, it's an excellent long-term signing for them. He's featured prominently in the German under 21s, under 19s, under 17s, all through his career. People speak highly of him in Germany. I think they have a pretty good feature on him, but he just wasn't going to see time at Bayern. So I think Hertha might have picked one away. I think that's a good signing for the long term.
Interesting. And before we go to some that you might not think will work out, again, I'll ask all of you guys this. Has there been any loans or transfers out of the Bundesliga to clubs that you've really noticed that you think that will be a good bit of business?
You know what makes me sad is that you didn't ask us this beforehand, so I don't know
Sorry.
how.
Sorry. I tell you what. I tell you what. I'll give you a chance to think about that and why you do think about that.
Sure.
Is there any business by the big clubs? Because I know all of our listeners will be fascinated. Have Bayern, Dortmund, all the usual suspects. Have they done any business as well?
Well, Serdar Tashi, the former Stuttgart center back, went to Bayern. They're trying to figure out how to give themselves a little more depth with Jerome Boateng being out, and unfortunately, he got a concussion in his first training session, so now he's out, which I thought was actually pretty funny. Apart from that, there's been no other really big business by any of the big clubs, so I don't think they really needed it, honestly. But apart from Wolfsburg bringing in Enrique, I don't think any of the big clubs really has anything that's worth mentioning, honestly, is my opinion.
Fair enough, fair enough. And yeah, is there anybody that you can think? I do apologise. I did creep up on you, but anyone? I mean, the one. I tell you what, I'll pick one for you. Tim Closer to go into Norwich. That was quite
Sure.
high profile. I mean, do you think that's a signing that will help Norwich? I mean, they're desperate right now, and he was. I think people were quite surprised that he left, and I think it was Raphael Honigstein said that he expected him to be very good there. So, what do you make of that one?
I think he's going to be very, very, very good. And then first of all, I didn't expect him to want to ever go to Norwich. In fact, I'm still kind of scratching my head over that. But they're going to get a very good center back out of that. He's got some good experience, and I think that's what matters the most. I think Norwich, a lot of people at Norwich fans, I know quite a few that they're kind of upset at the way things going on in the center of the defense, especially with someone like Basong, who on his day can be decent, but more often than not, he's not very good. So I think Klose will come in. I think maybe he'll sort of settle that back for. I think that's going to help them. I don't know if he'll help them necessarily avoid being relegated, which I think they're destined for. But at least for this season, it's a very, very good signing.
Yeah, I think they definitely need it. They definitely need looking at
Yeah.
Norwich situation right now. Okay, brilliant. Well, obviously we'll be back to you in a second, Drew, for
Did
the
you want
round
the one that I
table.
don't think is going to work?
Of course. Sorry. Yes, please. Give us one dud and the reasons
Uh,
why.
Unfortunately for John, I'm gonna say Jonas Hoffman, which you might not have expected me to say. The reason being, he left Dortmund because he wasn't going to be playing. He's gone to Gladbach, and now Andre Hahn and uh, his name escapes me. John,
Patrick
help.
Herman.
That's the one. Patrick Herman is also coming back, so he's not going to start over either of those. Plus, you have Traore on one wing doing very, very well. Raphael still in the attack doing well. So I don't know where he fits in. I think maybe moving forward, if they maybe sell a player or two, he'll get more time there. But I don't see him playing much this year after that. And so now for him, I feel bad, but I just want to see it working out. So we'll see.
Yeah, see, you've just ruined John's day now.
I always ruin John's day. That's the
Fair enough. Okay, super. I will be back to you, as I say, for the sort of roundtable bit in a second. Right, Tom, I'm going to come to you next for a little bit of sunny Spain news, La Liga news. So let's start with the good then, and a couple, as the same with Drew, give us sort of three. Start off with who's your most notable player that you think will be a good signing?
I've gone for Giuseppe Rossi as my first one, who's gone on loan from Fiorentina to Levante. Simply because we discussed it on the last pod actually, and he scored at the weekend in their loss to Sevilla. But this guy knows the league is what's important about, and Levante don't really have that top class. I mean, not that I'm saying Rossi's top class, but higher tiered striker in terms of the quality they have in their squad. He knows the league, as I've said, and he's very experienced, and he's a goal scorer. But the main thing about it is keeping him fit, because he's got a horrible injury record. But if you can get this guy scoring goals, he could be really pivotal in keeping Levante up, and that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah, as you say, he does know the league, and it was at Villarreal, as you say, and
Yeah.
pretty much a success. So we shall see what happens there. Give us another one.
I've gone for Chori Castro, who's moved from Real Sociedad to Malaga on a free transfer. He's a left wing player, and he's replacing Amrabat, who's gone on to play for Watford. And he's already got an assist for the club. He got an assist in their 2-1 win against Eibar away from home the weekend, and he's a great replacement. He's very capable on that left hand side. He's quick. He's a good passer of the ball, and he's good with the ball at his feet. And I think in terms of Malaga's turnaround, what they got from Amrabat, I think that's easily made up by what Chori Castro. Sorry, can we do that again? I lost my voice.
No, we got the gist. We got the gist. It's all good.
Ugh.
But you do think that will be one that will stand out as far as signings go. And if are you all right now? I'll ask you one more.
I'm drinking thoroughly. Yeah, my voice is going.
This is what happens when you party hard the night before, boys and girls. Give us one more then, Tom.
Very quickly, I've gone for Augusto Fernandez, who's moved from Celta Vigo to Atletico Madrid for €4 million. This guy is basically the replacement for the injured Thiago, who's out for the season, broken leg, so it's a long injury. But this guy, very capable in the middle. If you've realised Celta Vigo's massive turn down in form, it's mainly because they've lost this guy in the midfield. He's a real bulldozer for them and a real work rate high for them. So it's a massive loss, but a massive game for Atletico. So he's definitely covering Thiago, and he's doing it very capably so far.
Good stuff. And any sort of movement for the big clubs? And again, obviously Real Madrid and Barcelona, Atleti are the three big ones. But any notable clubs that you would pull out for business done?
Well, Valencia's signed Cheryshev from Real Madrid on loan. This guy hasn't been getting much action at Real Madrid, understandably, as a winger. He done really well at Villarreal last season, and he was involved in the fiasco with Real Madrid's Copa del Rey chucking out. It's a notable move. I'm not sure if it'd be successful, and it's a bit of an annoying signing for me because I like Valencia, and as you would have seen from the result that was tonight, they're really lacking defensive stability, and it isn't the right signing really for them. So it'll be interesting to see if he can add any goals for them, but it's a bit of an odd one in terms of why they got him.
It's one to, I suppose, one to keep a look on to see how it goes. And speaking of which, anybody that you think is a real dud?
Mainly because he was rubbish for Spurs. I've gone for Federico Fazio, who's gone back on loan to Sevilla. I know he did reasonably well when he was at Sevilla, but I think he could struggle again. He's not the same player that he was, and it'll be interesting to see if he can get past what they've already got.
Yes. I have to say I agree with you on that one. I'm maybe a bit biased, but any players that are leaving La Liga for foreign shores? You mentioned Nordin Amrabat, who's gone to Watford.
Yeah.
That's definitely one I think will probably do all right. Any others that really sort of caught your attention?
Yeah, it's another one, and he's not staying instantly. He's gone back on loan again, but it's Penaranda from Granada, who's. Everyone is already guessing where he's gone. He's gone to Watford, the Pozzo family, doing their business again. And this guy, 18-year-old, scoring goals already in La Liga, and he's gone back on loan for the rest of the season to Granada. But this is such a good guy to watch. He's rapid, he's a great finisher. And in the seasons to come at Watford, I've got really high hopes for this guy.
Cool. And I have to say, at this stage, the wheeling and the dealing, the Pozzo family. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up with all things La Liga for the time being. Again, I shall be back to you shortly. I'm going to bring things back home now. I'm going to go to Ross next and have a look at what's going on. Ross is going to look after the sort of the championship for us and Blue. So, Ross, what do you want to pick out for us? 3 players you want to pick out that have moved into the championship or have moved championship clubs this January. Who do you think might be good?
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot that happened in the championship this window, and there's so many I could have picked on. The 3 that I've gone for, I'm going to start with the obvious one, which is Jordan Rhodes to Middlesbrough. Happened on deadline day, almost didn't come off in the end, but it finally happened. That is probably the signing that pushes Middlesbrough over the line if people did start to worry that they weren't going to make it. It's a big sign for Middlesbrough, and I think he'll probably give them the goals to really challenge for at least the title, because I think with him, automatic is almost guaranteed.
Yeah, he gets goals. I think there's a stat going around that he scored something like, was it 80 in the last 4 or 5 seasons or something? It's a ridiculous scoring rate. So they'll hope he'll fire them much in the way that Bamford did last year. Give us another one.
82 and 155 for Blackburn.
There you go, Danny. That's why you're the best in the business.
Because I was going to pick him as well. Thank you, Ross.
There you go. You're looking after the Premier League, you back in your box. What about another one for us, Ross?
The next one I've gone for is one that it's a bit of a left field one because there were so many good moves in the Championship. I've gone for Liam Bridcut moving from Sunderland to Leeds. Personally, I'm a big fan of Bridcut. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a Premier League player. I think he's a top-level Championship player, though. And considering Leeds are trying to strengthen the midfield, settle things down so they don't concede as many as they did at the start of the season, I think Bridcut is a big part of that, along with Diagaragua, who came in as well during the window. But Bridcut, I think, is a very sly one that there'll be a lot of Championship teams looking at, thinking, "God, considering he was on loan, why didn't we go in for him?"
That's a good shout. That I didn't even know he'd moved, so you've just educated me there. Good shout. And a final one that you think will be pretty decent business.
I think this is one that Drew could possibly back me up on as well. It's Lex Immers, who moved from Feyenoord to Cardiff. I think he's a very good striker, especially at Championship level. He's already scored on his debut in a 3-2 win over Huddersfield. And I'm just looking at the table now. Cardiff are 4 points off the top 6 with Lex Immers. I think that they could probably close that gap. I think he's a good player for that level. But I'm sure, as Drew has seen much more of him, that he could probably give you a lot more in-depth analysis on Immers and how successful he'll be in the Championship.
Drew, just a quickie. Do you like him? Do you reckon he'd be decent?
I do like cookies. Is that where we're going with this, or should I not have said that?
Cookies and indeed Immers.
I think there's he wasn't ever going to sort of be in the long-term picture at Feyenoord, but I think, like Ross said, I think for Championship level, I think he can make up a difference for them. He'll get a decent amount of goals, and he'll get the return that they're going to be looking for. I think that's all that's required. But however, I will say that there's a reason why he went to the Championship. So keep that in mind. He's a solid option for someone like that, but we'll see. He's 29 now. He only featured 6 times this season, I think, and 4 of those were off the bench. So he'll be looking to at least rebound his career a little bit. So I think that they can play off that, but I think he'll be okay for them.
Fair enough. Got a win tonight, by the way, didn't you? After extra time.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, more on other games in a minute. Ross, back to you then. Sue, who or what of the clubs, let's say, chasing promotion, or any other sort of particular deals that really caught your eye from the bigger clubs?
There's a lot of good moves in the Championship at the moment. Stephen Sidwell has just gone to Brighton. I think he's a very good acquisition for the midfield. Danny will probably be able to back me up. Connor Washington just moved from Peterborough to QPR. I think that's another very good one for Queen's Park Rangers.
I think maybe QPR might be a bit too much of a leap for him because they're not doing very well, are they? And he's not going to replace the mighty.
No, he's got big shoes to fill.
That's it. Yeah.
Big shoes to fill, but I think he's probably as good as they were going to get for their price range or the kind of player they were looking for. Joe Mason has just gone to Wolves, and Mason consistently scores goals in that division. I'm surprised that Cardiff didn't keep hold of him. Chris Burke went to Rotherham from Nottingham Forest. I think that's a huge move for Nottingham Forest. No, for Rotherham. He's a big player in the Championship. They'll really appreciate him. And a guy whose name I may be about to mispronounce, but Zachary Labiad came in from Sporting Lisbon, I believe, into Fulham. I think that's a very good one as well. But there was my bad one, I think, is a really bad one. Blackburn. We mentioned a minute ago that Jordan Rhodes has moved on to Middlesbrough, and clearly they now need to bring someone in to score them goals. Their answer was Danny Graham. So that's my bad, because I think that's a huge drop in talent from Jordan Rhodes. But I suppose that's a very Paul Lambert kind of signing.
Yes, yeah. If ever there was a Paul Lambert signing, that is it. And yeah, I agree. I just want to ask you. This is a bit of a sidebar question to the other guys, but a player that you were most surprised didn't move from the Championship to the Premier League, for example, was there anybody that you looked at and thought, I'm really surprised they kept him?
I think the only move in the Championship that I was expecting to be a Premier League move was probably Jordan Rhodes. I don't think there's any other major strikers down there at the moment. I mean, Afobe left Wolves, but that doesn't shock me. So, no, I think the only player that stayed in the Championship that I'm surprised by is probably Jordan Rhodes.
Yeah, fair shout indeed. Okay, let's move on then. We'll stay in England then, Danny. I know you're chomping at the bit for bits and bobs here. So, and I'm pretty sure I'm giving John as much time as I can so he can keep writing the transfers that are probably still going on even though the window's shut in Italy. So, Danny, what about Premier League then? Let's pick out 3 of the better moves that you think have happened this winter. Sorry.
Yeah, for different reasons. John Joe Shelby. Now, people are probably going to think, what? That bald weirdo? But when you think that he single-handedly won many games for Swansea with some really superb performances, not this season because he only got 1 goal in 16 games. Last season, not so as much, but the first season that he went to Swansea, was that... how many seasons has he been at Swansea? He had a loan at Blackpool, and then he went to Swansea, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he's there for 2.5. I think
Yeah, that's what I
2.5
thought. His
years.
first season, he scored 6 in 32. Just looking at it now, and then he scored 3 in 31. But they were a team that was starting to fall apart, and 1 in 16, and they're just doing nothing now. The whole mess up with the manager, and he's the kind of player that Newcastle need. A little bit of flair. You wouldn't think John Joe Shelby is flair, would you? But he has got an eye for goal. He likes to get stuck in. The kind of person that in midfield is going to do a job for you. Not sure we'd do. He's any kind of player that would do for a top 2 or 3 team. That's kind of why Liverpool got rid of him. He very rarely did anything at Liverpool. He was only a bit part player. But I think he is more than enough quality in him to help Newcastle climb up the table and avoid relegation. We were saying in the breakfast show that I don't think when Newcastle are going to go down. They can't really. Their manager isn't that loved, but they have got some really decent players that have got in there. It's a toss up between him and Andros Townsend as my choice for the Newcastle player. But yeah, I'm going to stick with him because I think you watch him go this season. He's going to pull him up. He may get sent off a few times, but he's going to score the odd screamer, or at least he's going to die trying.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Slightly understated signing, I agree. Another one.
Benny Kafobe, he does what he says on the label. Wolverhampton Wanderers, he was there beginning of the season. I'm surprised Wolves let him go. They really needed him. But this season for Wolves, he had 9 in 25. And I remember seeing this bloke come through the ranks at Arsenal. Like he had on loan to Huddersfield, Reading, Bolton, Millwall, Sheffield Wednesday, and then MK Dons in the third division, League One, where he got 10 in 22. And then I thought, he's going to be one of those players, but he's never really going to make it for a Premier League team. But wow, Bournemouth are on a bit of a sticky run. 3 goals in 4 games. Bournemouth are back to resilient. They're resilient and back to being there. You can't take them for granted. Arsenal got them this weekend, and I said in the breakfast show that it's going to be 2-2, and he's going to score 2 of the goals. I'm tweaking the nipples of fate there, I know, a little bit, but he's so up for it. He's just energetic. He reminds me of a young Jermaine Defoe. You thought I was going to say Lenny Henry. No, not Lenny Henry. Jermaine Defoe. I think he's in the mould of Jermaine Defoe, Ian Wright, even Andy Cole, that kind of terrier player who's just going to go in there and he's not going to have to look up before he shoots. But just really good luck to the bloke. It's lovely to see an ex-Arsenal youth product come through and do really well.
Yeah, I think young Defoe's not a bad shout, actually. We shall see how that progresses. I think Bournemouth's definitely a good club for him, play the right football too.
Oh, what a manager to be playing under Eddie Howe. It must fill you with confidence. I think Ross was saying in the breakfast show that, did you say that one day you'd quite like to see Eddie Howe as the next Southampton manager?
Yeah, I have a funny feeling when Koeman goes, he'll probably be a target, because when Pardew left, we were after him as well, but he turned us down because he wanted to stay with Bournemouth, and then 2 weeks later went to Burnley, admittedly. But yeah, I think he's probably a future Southampton manager.
Yeah. Good shout.
He's a very inspirational manager and fills you with confidence, and he's not scared, is he? He's not scared to go out there and do what needs to be done.
No, he's really not. Really not. I agree with that. And give us one more that you think will be a decent buy.
Tom knows all about this player because I ruined Tom on FIFA 15 with him. Seyoud Doumbia. Seyoud.
You never beat me.
Yeah, I know, because you cheated in the last second. But you were screaming. This video is on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to see it. It's Tom having a panic attack because I'm crap at FIFA and I very nearly beat him when he pulled a draw out in the last second. Nearly did John as well, which is almost as embarrassing. Now, he was playing in Russia. Well, first of all, he's playing in Switzerland. Did quite well in Switzerland back in the 2009-10, 30 goals in 32 games. Then he really came to prominence when he was playing for CSK Moscow, 28 goals in 42 games one season, and then he got injured the next, and then he come back in 18 in 22, and then 7 in 13, and then Roma took a punt on him, paid quite a bit of money for him, but he really didn't get the chances at Roma. It's so hard for strikers to go to Italy and score goals if you're not a world-class player, because they'll just elbow you, and the game runs like a slow dripping tap at times. I'm a fan of Italian football and always will be, but it's just not suited to him, so they loaned him straight back out to CSK Moscow this season, his old team. He scored 5 goals in 13 league games, but the impressive thing is he got 6 goals in 8 games in, I think, the Europa League, was it? It wasn't the Champions League, was it?
They were in the Champions League this year, weren't they?
Were they? He got 6 in 8.
Might have done.
Or did they get knocked out of the Champions League and end up in Europa League?
They're in Europa League now, I think, but they weren't in the Champions League at the time. They were in Man United's group, weren't they?
I don't know, it doesn't say here where he scored the goals. I thought he got them all in the Europa League. Anyway, yeah, so he's bloody quick, and we all know if you look at many of the decent players in the Premier League, if you've got pace, and you're halfway towards scoring a goal. Now, he has got an eye for goal because in his entire career he's got 167 in 289. For his country, he's only got 5 in 33 because the Ivory Coast. I always think that you can, if you're not sure about a player when he's playing in another league, see how he does in the international cups and like the UEFA Cup and the Europa League and the Champions League, and then have a look how he is on international level. So his international level isn't that good, but he's in the European Continental Cups, whichever one you want to look at it, 25 in 33. Now, a lot of those would probably have been Europa League games, but that's a decent record. So I expect him to come to Newcastle along with Andre Townsend. Andre or Andre? Which one is it? Andros. Oh, I'm getting me Andries mixed up. And with John Joe Shelvey, and I think they've got a decent set of players there. And between those 3 players, I mean, as a Newcastle fan, I would be eager to see my team play every day just to watch those 3 play, because on their day they can ruin it. And when you've got the bloke whose name I mispronounce, Wijnaldum. Oh. And I remember when they had Alan Smith, I had no problem saying that. That was easy. Alan Shearer. So, yeah, watch out for Newcastle and watch out for those 3. I think they're all going to be very interesting to watch this season. Or they could all fall flat on their face and Newcastle get relegated. It's going to be one or the other.
I like the fact you kept it to one club, but I have to ask you now about the other clubs. Now, we know that none of the Arsenal obviously brought one player. I think Liverpool brought in Stephen Corker. City, United did nothing. Chelsea nothing. Well, they bought Pato actually, didn't they? But was there any other moves? Any other moves that sort of went under the radar that you think might be sort of quite big signings? Niasse at Everton, for example.
Charlie Austin is the one for me. £4 million. I don't care how much people don't like him. He scored in his debut against Man United in the very last minute. He was on the injured last night, so he wasn't even on the bench. But you watch, he's a big bulky player. He's going to get up there and he's going to get his elbows out and he's going to get the head in and he's going to score Southampton a few goals this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 5, 6, 7, maybe even more, depending on how fit he is, how much they play him. Pele. Oh, I can never say that right. He's back from injury now, so he's going to be getting a few games. So that's it's interesting to see what he's going to do. I know it's not strictly Premier League, but Yaya Snowgoal's going on loan to Charlton. If you ever wanted to secure your relegation, then well done, because that's going to be the man to do it. As he hasn't scored a single goal in club football since he's joined Arsenal, and he's played 24 games, be they substitute or started them or not a single goal. And he scored 1 goal in 5 FA Cup games, and he scored 1 goal in 6 Europa or European or Champions League games, whichever way you want to look at it. I mean, if he can go to Holland and play for Ajax, who along with PSV are running away with that league, and only get 3 games, he only got 3 for the first team and he only got 3 for the young team as well, and he did absolutely nothing. I mean, the Ajax fans were laughing with me on Twitter about how bad he was. I mean, that's what they were telling me. I don't know, because I didn't see him play once. So I think that's an interesting move because he's just going to do nothing. I feel sorry for the bloke. But
no love for Yaya.
No, there was years ago.
Not anymore. Is he your stinker, or have you got anybody else you want to mention that you think will be a spectacular failure?
I've got one other spectacular. Well, not as much as a failure, but of a why bother. Ashley Cole going to LA Galaxy. If you're going to waste best part of £100,000 a week on a has-been player, why waste it on a left back? What are you going to do with that? I mean, there's absolutely no sense in him. And everyone knows I'm a big fan of MLS. Been a Portland fan. Been following MLS since the year before it started, because they announced it at the World Cup in '94 when the USA held it. That it's just absolutely pointless. I just cannot see, why would you want to spend all that money on a left back? There must be all those other players at LA Galaxy that are earning £30,000-40,000 a year, and he's earning more than that all on his own. And how much difference can a left back make in a game? It's not like he's blessed with pace anymore. I mean, the poor old bloke's 35. And what are you going to do with that? I mean, I can see that they're getting De Jong. Did I say that right, Drew?
You did.
Hey. Yes. And they got Robbie Keane, who may be slow, old and fat, but at least he can still score an overhead kick. And then, does he still do his cartwheels when he scores?
I think he probably put his back out. He probably still does, though, to be fair. When
you want to spend all that kind of money on someone like Gerrard or Keane, then that's understandable, because they've got the flair to win you games and they're going to get stuck in. But what can a left-back do? At 35, that's one of the most ridiculous signings anyone's made on that kind of money in the MLS in weeks. So there you go. What a waste of time. And also Patrick Bamford going to Norwich. He was Championship Player of the Season last season when he was with, was it Middlesbrough? Yeah, it was Middlesbrough. 17 goals in 39 games. Did absolutely bugger all at Norwich. I don't even think he played a single game for Crystal Palace this season, did he? Maybe he played a handful of sub games.
Yeah, a couple of sub games. He didn't get the chance that he probably merited, though.
Here we go. Oh, he played 6. Wow, that's 6 more than I thought he played. But I think he's the kind of player that is going to score goals for Norwich. If he plays every game, he's a creative young player. He's an England under-21 international, isn't he? Yeah, just check there, 2 games. He's one to watch out for. He's an exciting young player. And there's no point being at Chelsea because they're never going to play you, really, are they? As, what's his name?
Loftus-Cheek.
That's it. Old cheeky boy, as he's found out to his cost that he's not really going to get any game time there. Yeah, so there's been some quite interesting ones. There's been not many massive big ones, like you were saying, the one at Everton and the one that went to... Who was the other one who spent about 16, 18 million that I got confused last time?
Gianelli and Bulla.
There we go. Yeah, so I didn't really want to talk about those ones because it's not always the big money deals that go through. It's quite often the loan deals.
Yeah. It's been active, but not half as active as I think a lot of people expected. So,
and I'm a big fan of Pato. I've been a big fan of Pato since he was 17. Just before he was 17 years old, because he couldn't make his AC Milan debut until he was 17. Yeah. And as soon as he made his debut, he scored, and there was so much hype. And I grew up. I didn't grow up. I watched him grow up at Milan. I thought, here we go. This is going to be one hell of a player. Then he went to my Brazilian team, Corinthians. Did nothing. They couldn't give him away. So it's gone from they wanted 30 million, 25, 15. I'll just have him on loan. Just want to get his wages off the books. Yeah. So hopefully he'll come and he will score no goals.
It'll be very interesting to see because obviously they haven't named Falcao in their Champions League squad now. They put Pato in instead, so that's a gamble. But Falcao's career has gone off a cliff. Right, so from a league that wasn't particularly busy, let's go to a league that was mental. And it always is, let's be honest. John, Serie A, lots going on. I know this is probably like the hardest of the lot for you to pick out just 3 that you think will be decent signings, but off you go.
Oh, yeah, this is a bit tough. Luckily, as you've put in any other notable moves, I can mention a few in that. But the 3 I've picked out, the first one is Christian Tello from Barcelona on loan to Fiorentina. More than anything else, because Fiorentina's season has turned down a little bit. Paolo Sousa actually reports that he might want to leave the club because of the lack of transfer activity. Their wage bill got slashed by like 30%, so they're really struggling. I think they only named 14 players tonight in a possible squad of 17 for tonight's game. So it's just another reinforcement for up front, and they sort of struggle to get goals. So hopefully he can help them out there. Another one, again, I've picked out mainly from the lower sides because the big boys didn't really do too much. Jonathan de Guzman has gone to Carpi on loan from Napoli. Carpi is, I'm sure everyone knows, down near the bottom, struggling, trying to save off relegation. They're on a decent run at the moment, but that's just a really good player to get in. Experience, he knows the league. He hasn't played for a while at Napoli. They haven't really used him, but what he can bring in midfield for them is really, really good. And then the last one is Roma, who definitely won the transfer window, El Shaarawy. Seemed like he was going to go absolutely nowhere. Nobody wanted him. Milan didn't want him back. Monaco didn't want to keep him, so they didn't want to pay the money for him. He's gone to Roma, 2 games, 2 goals, looked reinvigorated, looks like he wants to play. If he keeps himself fit and in this form, he'll get himself a spot in the Euros as well for the Italian national team.
I don't envy you of trying to pick out just a couple from that massive long list. Any other notable ones that really stand out for you that would be worth a mention?
Roma probably did the 3 best moves altogether because they got El Shaarawy, but they also got Zukanovic from Samp and Perotta from Genoa. They went out and addressed exactly what they needed in the team, and they did that. The biggest move of the window was probably internally within Serie was Eder from Samp to Inter for 13 million euros. Inter need goals, which sounds stupid when you have someone like Icardi, in your side, but it's weird because they've got a goal scorer, they're just not making goals for him, or he did score tonight. We did have about 30 shots on goal and somehow only managed to get 1. As for like sort of other notable ones, the best one I spotted really was Stefano Sensi, who's a really young Italian player who I spoke about, I think it was when we were talking about up-and-coming players from our respective leagues a few pods ago. Sassuolo got him from Cesena for 5 million euros. Sass's fortunes have gone down a little bit last few games, and they're going to have to rely on youth because they're not a club full of money. But he is tipped to basically be the next, the closest comparison they said he's somewhere between Pirlo and Verratti, which is some serious praise and a lot of pressure to put on a young kid. But yeah, I'd imagine he'll get some game time straight in for Sassuolo this season. But yeah, the big boys didn't really do a lot. I suppose the other sort of notable one was Gervinho leaving Roma, going to China, along with Freddie Guarin and players from just about every other league, I think.
Jackson Martinez as well today.
Yep.
That worked out well, didn't it, Atleti? Whoops. What about a flop or a player that you think is a massive gamble that may not pay off?
Poor Montella. He has like some of his best players taken from his team, and then he gets in Dodo from Inter, Ranocchia from Inter, and Ricky Alvarez on a free from Inter. Pick one of those three as your worst, basically. Ricky Alvarez is probably top of the list. I don't get it. I know he's a free transfer, and I know Samp need players, but just at what point are you ever going to want to play him? He's just failed everywhere he's gone. I don't like insulting players because he's a professional footballer, which is something I've never been able to do. But yeah, I don't see the point of them signing him at all.
No, I think that's probably fair. Now, I deliberately left our two leagues for last because we have had full midweek programmes in our relevant leagues. So did you want to just quickly read the results off and the scorers from the midweek games tonight and last night?
Yeah, I can read the results. I did actually have two notable moves out of the league, if you wanted those.
Yes, sorry, I did. I forgot to mention that. So sorry,
quite all right, because they don't normally, or Italians don't anyway, but one Italian has left Serie and he's gone to Swansea. Palosci, who we mentioned before. I think that's a really good move for Swansea. I hope he does really well there. He's a player I really like. I think he'll fit their style. Some people saying he's not technically good enough, but I actually think he'll do quite well there. Just 10 million euros. And Fiorentina letting Mario Suarez go to Watford. The Pozzo family gets a very good deals. 5.5 million euros. Just a very solid midfielder, experienced. Who did he play for before in? I can't remember now.
Mario Suarez?
Yeah.
He was at Atletico Madrid.
There we go. Yeah. I was trying to remember where he was in Spain. So it's just another really good signing. So, some Serie A players off to the Premier League. But as for results, Roma, last night, that is Tuesday, this is Wednesday recording, they went away to Sassuolo, 1-2-0, El Shaarawy on the score sheet again. As for tonight's game, Frosinone got a home win against Bologna. Napoli won 2-0 against Lazio, game slightly delayed there. Some ugly scenes from the Lazio fans. Gonzalo Higuain scoring again. Is that 23 and 23 now, I think?
Yes, it is,
yeah. That's the 23rd one. Samp getting a 2-2 draw with Torino at home. No thanks, Samp, because I didn't bet money on you and you conceded the goal in the last minute. Empoli getting a 1-1 at home with Udinese. Fiorentina getting a 2-1 win against Carpi. Verona, shock. They finally won a game. They finally won at last.
No.
They won at home, 2-1 at home to Atalanta.
That's all down to us, by the way, because we said Troyes and Verona. We set them a bet, didn't we? And they have both won a game. They both lost every game since. But yeah, whoops.
They probably won't win again, but
No.
Or maybe they win now to the end of the season. It'd be amazing.
You never know.
Inter Milan got their 10th 1-0 win of the season. Icardi on the score sheet. That was at home to Chievo. Milan won away to Palermo 2-0. Very good result for them. Their form has really turned around. And Juventus won again, 13th straight home win, 1-0 at home to Genoa. They weren't sparkling, but it's another win, and it's just pushing Napoli the whole way to the title.
It's a late sending off in that game as well, wasn't there?
Yes, Simone Zazza got sent off. He likes to make a silly tackle every now and again.
God bless him, but they still keep winning. Okay, that's draws a line to Serie A then. So it's just my league to go then, and Liga and what's happened here. So the three I've picked out as sort of signings that I think will be worth keeping an eye on. The first one is a goalkeeper actually, which is completely out of left field, but Paul Bernardone, who has signed to Bordeaux from Troyes. And now you'd think why on earth would Bordeaux be after a goalkeeper that was at Troyes and essentially is the worst club in the league. But I really like this kid. He's only young. Bordeaux's Cedric Carrasco is out for the season, and they needed cover in goal, and they've kind of plumped for a youngster. He's only 18 years of age, so it is a bit of a risk. And after what happened to him tonight, you might say could be a little bit too much of a risk. But I'm kind of keen to see how he gets on. He was very highly rated at Troyes. It's nice to see sort of getting an opportunity to get games. So see how that one goes. The second one, I'm probably a little bit biased here, but Jimmy Cabot, who's joined Lorient from Troyes also. So there's a theme developing here. Really talented, really, really good. He's made his debut in the Parc des Princes tonight for Lorient. He's quick, he's direct, he's young. He's probably Troyes' best player this season before moving on. So I think he might do quite well. So I've picked him, and I was tied for three different players. So I won't go into the reasons why because it will just bore everyone to tears. But there's three other signings that are notable. But before I do that, I'll say the only other one that I think will be really good business is actually Mathieu Debuchy. Again, another signing who's gone to Bordeaux on loan from Arsenal, played tonight, and looked back to the sort of player that maybe Arsenal fans will be missing. So I think that will be a good move. The ones to keep a note of, I would say Eder at Swansea, who's gone to Lille. Not been the same player that maybe the promise was there after he did his ACL, but I think it might be a good move for him. Wagner Love, who's joined Monaco from Corinthians in Brazil. I'm sure you'll all remember him of the colourful braided hair. I think he might get goals for Monaco, and they always need goals. They are not the best to watch at times. Alex Sutherland, who's gone to St Etienne, got the winner in the derby against Lyon on only a second start. I think he'll do pretty well. He had a good goal-scoring record in Scandinavia. And the final one is Yatara, who's joined Angers from Standard Liège, who I think will again provide them with some much-needed goals after they let go of Kamara to Derby County. And as far as players that maybe, or sort of the big guns, I mean, they've all been quite quiet, really. Lyon have sold players. Beauvais, most notably, has gone to Celta Vigo. Marseille have brought Florian Thauvin back, which is a bit of a strange one. The manager, Michel, didn't really want him. He made his debut and was promptly sent off. So that was a good start. Well done, them. But elsewhere, PSG, no movement from them. They've let one player go on loan, but nothing else coming in. And as far as a player who I feel really bad here, I should actually say Henri Save and Wabi Kazri, who have both left Bordeaux to join Sunderland and Newcastle, both excellent signings in my opinion, particularly Kazri. A lot of people won't know a lot about him, but he's a very, very good little player. But as far as the one that I have to pick as, I'm not saying he's going to flop, but I'm just staggered. Stephen Fletcher to Marseille, really? Just bizarre. Really,
he's going to hate.
Well, it's just a bizarre signing. I mean, I'm sure for him he'll be delighted, absolutely over the moon, because he's leaving Sunderland to join Marseille. Who wouldn't be delighted with that move? But I don't think he's going to play very often behind Michy Batshuayi, and it just seems like a very odd signing. So, not sure about that one.
Can I ask you something, Chris?
You can, mate.
Do you think it's more of a bizarre signing, seeing as he's home nation's player?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I just, the whole thing is just odd. It's just really odd because, I mean, he hasn't got Euros to worry about. Cheeky dig there, but I just don't think he's going to play. I mean, he might be. I was talking to a sort of a couple of mates of mine and saying that maybe he might be the Mark Hateley of yesteryear, going abroad as a Scotsman playing in France, but. It just doesn't seem to make sense. The only thing I would say is Marseille were desperate for a striker, and they were linked with everyone. I mean,
how about Tony Cascarino?
Or Tony Cascarino, there you go. I mean,
Alan McAnally?
Cascarino will probably do a better job now than Fletcher will. But
I bet Fletcher gets goals.
He probably will.
It's funny you mentioned Mark Hateley, actually. There was a big, huge banner in the Curva Sud for the Milan derby of him and his famous headed goal in the 80s against Inter. And then Alex went and scored a header. Oh, I've gone and upset myself again, sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So you see what happens when you do these things. But yeah, we shall see. The only other one I want to mention before I bring all of the pundits back in is there's a player who has joined Rennes this transfer window. He's come from the Orlando Pirates in South Africa. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but what I will tell you is he's got the best name ever. His name is Kermit Erasmus. Yeah, indeed. We shall see whether he can turn into whether he'll be a frog or indeed a princess, or indeed neither. But Kermit Erasmus, best name ever. So we shall see how he gets on. Not quite as good a name as Rod Fanny, but it's right up there.
He's going to get so much stick in the Championship as well.
Oh, isn't he just?
So much stick.
Especially at Charlton, the amount of London derbies and oh yeah.
Well, Charlton's players have been playing like fannies recently, so
Hey, there we go. It writes itself, boys and girls. It writes itself. Right, I'm going to bring in the rest of the panelists now, and let's sort of see what people think. So it's kind of a bit of a free for all, guys. I'll start with Drew, just in a sort of a general basis. Drew, Bundesliga, from your perspective, has it been the transfer window you expected? Is there any and are there indeed any clubs that you think have not done business that probably should have?
Honestly, oh boy, maybe. I mean, the clubs that should have done business did. Hanover made a massive amount of signs for the Bern, brought in quite a few players. Stuttgart solidified their holdings in certain positions. So, I don't know. I think maybe. Let me see. If I had to really think about it, I think maybe Hamburg didn't do enough. They brought in Josip Dermic, and I don't know how he's going to do well there because he'll not start over Pierre-Michel Lasogga. They brought in Nabil Bahoui from El Akli, but again, I think they could have done much better for a club of their stature, with their history involved. I think they could have maybe tried a little bit harder. They also let Marcelo Diaz go, so I'm not quite sure what their course of action really was. Maybe FC Cologne brought in Filip Mladenovic, which was pretty good, but they probably could use another goal scorer. I think Wolfsburg actually could have done more than just getting Bruno Enrique. But I mean, tough window. It's really, and we hear this all the time, especially from the Premier League. I really don't know who was actually available for them to bring in. So apart from that, no, I think everything was all right. I don't see Dortmund really needing anybody, but they're rumored to be going into a lot of business in the summer, so I think they're just waiting that out. And I think they're letting Hoffman and Januzaj go is sort of clearing the air for their moves in the summer they want to make. Bayern doesn't need anybody. I think Bayer Leverkusen are looking fine. Schalke brought in Yunus Belhanda. He'll get some time there, and they brought in Alessandro Schopp as well, so that gives them a little bit more depth involved. But after that, I think everything was pretty all right. No big spender or club that had the ability to spend didn't really spend. So I think that was okay.
Yeah, fair enough. John and Tom, I'll bring you two in together on this one. John, your window was extremely active. Tom, your window wasn't particularly active. What I want to know from you guys is, John, there's a lot of players in Serie A in particular that are starting to command attention from big clubs around Europe. And Tom, obviously, there's two very big clubs in Spain that have got suspended transfer windows. I want you two really to just have a natter between yourselves. John, I'll start with you. Players that you think that those two big sides in Spain could look at, and then if you want to throw to Tom, Tom can give you his riposte on those.
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious one is obviously Paul Pogba. Lots of talk that he's essentially sort of signed and done a deal with Barcelona. Then other people saying, oh no, he's going to go to PSG because he is a Paris Saint-Germain fan and that's where he grew up. Then other people saying, oh no, it's Madrid coming in. And, that would be the standout one. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Gonzalo Higuain in the summer. I think a lot depends on whether Napoli actually win Serie A, on whether he will move or not. Paladibla as well is been sensational, and I don't think anyone thought he'd be as good as he's been for Juventus. So it wouldn't surprise me if teams come in for him. As for the sort of the young Italian players that a lot of people I know talk about, like Berardi and players like that, I'd be surprised if they leave just because Italians generally don't leave the league, don't leave Serie A. If they're going to go anywhere, it's to a Juventus or a Milan or someone like that. The other notable big name I can see going is Pjanic, maybe going to Madrid. I know there was some talk of that. So I'd expect Pogba and Pjanic will probably be the two in the headlines the most. I can't see Higuain going to Spain as such because the only club I assume he could go to would be back to Madrid, but that wouldn't really make any sense to me.
So, Tom, what do you reckon then? How many of the players potentially in Serie? I mean, obviously there's other leagues that they're going to look at, but I look at particularly John's mentioned there the likes of a Pjanic or a Pogba. Surely there are players, maybe even a Berardi or
Yeah.
what's the Icardi, of course, who's well, seems to be looking like he wants to get out of Inter. Do you think any of those top players in Italy would look at La Liga and think, fancy a bit of that?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned Dybala. I think Dybala has Barcelona written all over him. It's just the way he plays and his style, and the fact that Barcelona are still looking for that striker who can play as not just second fiddle, but more like knowing that can replace Suarez effectively when Suarez doesn't play. And they've got, obviously, we've talked in length about La Liga's able to rotate a lot more, and Barca clearly can't do that with their striker. But Paul Pogba's the big one, isn't he? He's the one that people talk about the most in terms of moving to Spain. He's a player that I'd say that Real Madrid need more than Barcelona because of the defensive side of things. I think Barcelona have always been interested in Paul Pogba. He's young. He's a player who's good on the ball, good with the ball at his feet, good passer. He would suit them down to the ground, but I can't see Juventus selling him, and to be honest, he doesn't seem like he wants to move either. So there's also that. At the end of the day, Pjanic is one that I really like Pjanic as a player, but I don't think he gets into Real Madrid's side right now because he's not a defensive-minded player, and Real Madrid, that's what they're really needing at the moment. With you've got Kroos and Modric and Isco and James, there's not much point in bringing in another player in that ilk. And I think Zidane's going to be looking to get the best out of the players that he's got at the moment. But just finally, in terms of Spain. In terms of how the league looks and stuff, I think the business happened of what you expected. What you saw with Atletico and Real Madrid is that clearly the ban, they always knew it was going to be suspended because otherwise you would have seen them spending a bit more money than they did to counteract that. But they didn't, and they move on. Teams that I thought would spend did, and teams that didn't. And there were some shock moves. I spoke about Valencia earlier. The one I will give you is Espanyol. I really think they needed to buy a striker because Caicedo can't do it all on his own. But I guess that's the risk they've taken that could see them hit the drop.
It's going to be a busy summer, definitely, I think, for those clubs. Danny and Ross, I'm going to come to you as a pair as well on this one. Danny, first of all, I want to focus on Manchester City a second here, Premier League-wise. And obviously, we've been through the Pep thing. We covered that on Monday's podcast. There's surely a lot of players that they are going to need to get out, and surely a lot of players they're going to need to get in. Do you think Man City are going to be the most active? And also, I want you to just touch on Chelsea and Man United because they're also going to have to rebuild, surely. Danny.
Yeah, I was being polite.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, they are gonna. There's going to be a massive amount of players in there. I'm not even sure that Sepp will be overly bothered about how much money he gets for the players because how much is Yaya on a week? He's got to be 200 grand a week, isn't he? Round about that.
I think it's more, isn't it? 250. It's
a
lot of money for that player. Yeah.
You can get rid of him. You're probably going to get. I'm just looking at the transfers that have gone into China, which is something we should talk about one day, or maybe we should talk about. But he'll probably bugger off to China. They were on about that some players could be on £20 million a year over there, which is absolutely amazing money. That's where most of those players end up buggering off to, because I don't think many other Premier League teams will want them. They definitely won't go to another Premier League team that's going to want them and can afford the transfer fee when they're not going to go, well, I'm going from, 230, 240 a week down to a measly 100 grand a week, 150 grand a week. They're not going to be able to do that. The ones in Spain, well, he's already been to Spain, hasn't he? Wasn't it Sepp that got rid of him from Barcelona? He may have been left before that, I'm not too sure.
Who?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, because when Pep was there, he quite famously sort of said that Yaya wasn't his type of player and he left Barca. So the thought is he'll do the same again this summer.
So it's just been more paper talk today about Jose going to be manager of Man United. He's going to want another couple of 100 million. Chelsea, Man City are going to have at least 250, 300 million because they know they've got probably the best manager in the world. Some people say no, others agree. You don't really know, but from previous history, he's probably the best manager in the world, and he's going to get the best wages in the world. What's he on, about 18 million a year? Was it?
Easily that, yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to want. There's going to be £500 million spent between Chelsea, Man City, Man United next season. So unless other teams want to try and keep up with that, you get the likes of Stoke and all these other teams and Newcastle spending 40, 50 million pound. They'll be spending that on single players next season. And so it's just sometimes that's why I think as an Arsenal fan, I'd rather not just go and spend hundreds of millions to try and keep up with these people, because they'll just spend hundreds of millions of pounds more. But next season it is going to be one hell of a season for transfer deadline day. I mean, the whole of the transfer window, everyone's going to be going from everywhere, and people are going to try keeping up. And there again, maybe some players like Yaya will say, I'm not going to move unless I can get that money somewhere else. But there again, we've seen Man City plenty of times before get rid of players and agree to pay half of their wages while they're gone, maybe even more. But but it's definitely going to be an interesting time. I mean, I think there was a mention on TalkSport yesterday. They said that Man City have already been linked to 172 players.
Jeez.
That's all of the players.
Yeah,
There is
madness.
there is a hilarious story going around because I know Man United were trying to get Neymar, weren't they? They were basically looking at every top name player you could look at in the summer: Neymar, Thomas Muller, and everyone else. But Man City are genuinely going to go and try and attempt to get Neymar out of Barcelona in the summer, apparently. Because
Well, they
he
said
was the
the
player
same
that
about Messi.
Bayern Munich, wasn't he?
Good luck with that.
That's true.
But is that just the usual contract shenanigans that they do at Spanish clubs to try and, I'm going to go and play for Barnet. I want
The
you
one
to double
thing
my
is that
monies.
Obviously, he could get more money at Man City.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can.
it's just madness. It's
It's
absolute
freezing
madness.
cold in Manchester and you won't understand a word they're saying.
Yeah, good luck with that. Ross,
Even if
from-
you learnt the language, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Ross, from as a Southampton fan and sort of a fan of a club that obviously we've talked in length about the fact that there's going to be a lot of money coming into the Premier League this season, and indeed at the end of this season for the teams that stay in the Premier League. So that's surely going to open the market for players that a club of Southampton's stature or even a lot less of a stature than Southampton are going to be able to get big name players. Do you think that this summer is going to be one of the busiest yet for clubs sort of lower down the table and bringing in these top level players?
I don't know about busy. I think competitive is the right word. I think if a player does come on the market, there's a big cluster of teams in the middle of the league at the moment. As you can see just by looking at the table, how close it all is stuck together. If you put a decent player on the market for 10, 15, 20 million, there's going to be 4 or 5 teams that are going to be in for him. So I'm not sure if busy is the word I'd pick. I'd certainly go with competitive though, because like I say, if a good player comes on the market, suddenly there's 3, 4, 5 different teams that suddenly become very viable options for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think, like you say, it will be busy. And from a perspective of a Saints fan, how many sort of players do you see coming in, going out? Does it depend on whether Koeman decides to stick around potentially?
Koeman strikes me as the kind of guy that will stick around for all 3 years of his contract, regardless of whether or not he decides to sign on. So I don't think we've got too much of a problem there. In terms of outgoing, the one I'm sure of is Wanyama. He wanted to go last window, much like Schneiderlin wanted to go the window before that. We said to him, no, we need you because we've already lost big players. We need to keep you around. He's done a job. He's not been as good as he has been, and he only seems to turn up against Arsenal. But he's still been a good player for us. I suspect we'll probably return the favour and start looking for a new club for him this summer. Gaston Ramirez will go. Mane will probably have some more interest. If a decent bid of 25 million plus comes in for him, then we'll say yeah, but I don't think that we've got any reason to sell Mane just yet. Otherwise, I think there's probably room for a couple more that we need. We especially need to sort out up front, because for as long as we've been back in the Premier League, we haven't had anything consistent since Lambert Rodriguez and Lallana. As soon as that broke up, it's been very tough up front. But maybe Austin's the answer to that. So I'm not expecting massive movement from Southampton, but you know, there's still potential. There's always good players around, and Koeman especially knows how to find them. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just before I leave you on this subject, I just want to touch on players that from abroad that you think, you can just pick out 1 or 2 if you like, that players that you might think that could come in from overseas and really sort of tear the Premier League up, whether that be top level or mid-level type players, mid-level teams.
Realistically, my issue is I don't watch a lot of or too much of Spanish or Italian. The only player that springs to mind, and you'll probably be in the best position to verify this, is a player that I've always thought would do very well bottom level of the Premier League, which is Joan Mollo. I've always thought he could do a job for a lower league Premier League side, but yeah, that's the only name that immediately springs to mind, at least.
Yeah, I think even slightly higher than a lower low. I think he's a very very good player. I'm surprised he's not been picked up. And there's a few. In fact, I will ask our guys if you can just get thinking. I will come to you all individually with a couple of players that you think are primed for the picking in the summer. So I'll give you a few minutes to think about that. While I do, Drew and who shall I pick on? Drew and Tom. Let's pick on you two. Any business that you can see between Bundesliga and La Liga, or the other way round? Drew, I'll start with you. Any players you think would be ideal for German football from Spain, or indeed the other way?
Honestly, I do think one of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang or Robert Lewandowski will leave this summer, probably to Spain. I know there's always rumors surrounding both of them, but PEA is apparently he's half Spanish and his dream is to play in Spain, and Real are always sniffing around Lewandowski. So, and with Pep leaving Bayern, you never know what the board's going to do, how they're going to want to rebuild under the new manager. So I'm not sure, but Aubameyang might be getting a little too big for Dortmund's shoes. He might want to go ahead and have a real crack at Champions League, but he has no reason to leave this season. Obviously, there was always rumors of him leaving in January, but I think he might actually leave in the summer. Depends on Dortmund's business. Those two particularly, I think. I would also be shocked if a Spanish club came in for Javier Hernandez. He's been brilliant for Leverkusen. He's won Player of the Month the last 3 months in a row in the Bundesliga. So, but I don't know if he'll want to stay in Germany or not. He's rebuilt his career the past 6-7 months. But I would be surprised if someone like anyone below Barca, Real, or Atleti went in for him. So just keep that in mind, I suppose.
Absolutely. And same question the opposite way to you then, Tom. Any players that you think, because Spain to Germany, it doesn't ever seem to be a massive, it doesn't seem to happen, does it, very often?
No, not really.
So any, I'll swing the question the opposite way. I mean, any players you could see that La Liga clubs could benefit from? I know that there's, I want to pick out, what's the lad at Valencia who's done really well? The name completely escapes me.
Mustafi,
not
German
Gary
centre
Neville.
back, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I
Not
think
Gary Neville, no.
he's done very well. But any others that you think that would work?
Well, actually, Drew sort of snatched everything I was going to say, and even when he started, I was like, when he started talking about Lewandowski, I was like, okay, think of someone else. Oh, Javier Hernandez, don't worry. And then he mentioned him. So, but no, it's funny because you said not Atletico, and I'm actually thinking that this summer, because of the suspension, Atletico will be able to sign players, and this could be the summer you could see a certain Antoine Griezmann leaving, and Javier Hernandez would be the perfect replacement for him, considering his form at the moment. Or even so, a perfect partnership with Antoine Griezmann as well. So that's also one. Obviously, Real Madrid want Lewandowski. It's blatant. They don't seem to be too keen on keeping Benzema at the end of this season. However, that could change considering his amazing form. But Lewandowski's always been a target of theirs, always one they've wanted to get. Emerick Aubameyang's an interesting one. I'm not sure where he'd move to if he was to move in Spain, because obviously Barcelona have Suarez, and Aubameyang will be wanting to play week in, week out. So I think he's better off staying at Dortmund or moving to maybe the Premiership, maybe to Arsenal, please, than moving to La Liga, because I don't think he'll get the same game time. But no, as you said, Spain to Germany is not well trodden. Obviously, you've got the likes of Alonso, Benet, and Alcantara, and actually Benet is probably one I could see going back to Spain if Guardiola leaves. But I think Thiago will be following Pep to City.
I think you might be right on that one. I know, Drew, we've also mentioned about Julian Weigl potentially breaking your heart and moving to Man City as well. So we shall see. Right, have you all had some thinking time? Because I'm going to come to you individually. Danny, I'm going to start with you. Any players that you think, now English players don't move abroad, so there's just no point in even mentioning that. Are there any players that you think are primed to come into the Premier League that you think would be perfect signings off the top of your head, or players that you just really, really like that you'd like to see in the Premier League?
Yeah, but ones that I don't like that I'd like to see. I mean, there's the world's greatest player, Firmino. Why do I keep putting an H in there? It seems natural.
You're not alone. A lot of pundits do it.
Yeah, he's going to be off, isn't he? I mean, he's the world's greatest player. I mean, he scored 5 goals in 21 games for Liverpool. He's got Barcelona or Real Madrid written all over him. Or maybe no, he's not hard enough to play for Atletico. He needs to have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to be able to play for those and be able to make himself invisible to the referee. So, yeah, he'll definitely be off. There's no way he's going to stay at Liverpool. They're going to get £40-50 million for him because he's decidedly average. But that's what they like, a cheeky Brazilian. I tried one myself once. I'm still smarting. Ross Barkley, he's definitely one that I think a lot of clubs are looking at. I mean, he scored a couple of goals tonight, both penalties, 8 goals in 24 games. He's a player that I like, but Everton fans don't like him. He's only 22 and he's going to turn out to be a decent player. Left-footed, so maybe Arsenal will have him because they like average left-footed English midfielders. So then another one I was looking at is the Elephant Man, Harry Kane. We all thought he was a one-season wonder, didn't we? Last season, 21 in 34. He's got 15 in 24 this season. Spurs are unbeaten in about the last 50 games they've played or whatever it is. He's banging in goals at an alarming rate. And I think one of the other ones who other teams might take a punt on, the fourth one, I don't know how many I was meant to pick. I know the others want need to go to sleep because they've got about an hour's sleep. Is Mahrez of Leicester. I think he cost them about $500,000, and he's got 13 in 23 this season. He has just been absolutely fantastic. But will he be one of those players that goes to another club after being a one-season wonder? I mean, towards the end of last season he was good, but he's another one that could be interesting. But then again, Leicester might need him in the Champions League.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy summer for Leicester, definitely, and a lot of players will be coming and going one way or t'other. Right, let's shift over. This will be my final question, guys. So I'll shift across let's go to John next. John, any players that you'd really, really like to see in Serie A, realistically, and any players that you think have probably had enough in Serie A and will be moving on?
In terms of players coming, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people with names that the listeners already recognise. They seem to get a lot of players in from either from the youth development or from there's a lot of players coming in from Eastern Europe, which, to be perfectly honest, most of them I haven't heard of either. As for players moving out, the only real notable ones I think is ones I've already mentioned. Like I expect Pjanic will probably move in the summer. Just because Rome has just been such a mess the last few seasons, and it just seems sensible for him to go, and he's a good enough player to play on the top side. Mauro Icardi, if Mancini is still in charge of the team, I can see him leaving. I could see him in the Premier League, actually. Definitely getting a move there. And the other one is Felipe Anderson, who is, I know, linked heavily with Man United in the January transfer window. He could, quite honestly, I could see him in Spain or in the Premier League. He's good enough to play there. I think he's good enough for the Bundesliga, but his style doesn't exactly suit there. But as for one coming in, actually, it's funny that Danny said Ross Barkley, because some of the comparisons that have been made to Paul Gascoigne, who obviously is much loved in Italy. So I'd love to see someone like Barkley come over, because Revel Morrison come over and did absolutely nothing. So it'd be nice to get one that does something.
Yeah, it would be interesting, wouldn't it? Ross, have you got anybody that you think? I'll change the question just ever so slightly. Any players that you think can make the step up from Championship level to Premier League, having had another 6 months of football, or indeed even lower than that? Is there any other Jamie Vardy's potentially lurking that you might have spotted?
I think all the players of the Championship that deserve a shot in the Premier League will probably get their shot in the Premier League because they're all in the big teams. Your Jordan Rhodes, etc. As for lower down the leagues, there's only one player that immediately springs to mind that I think could get a shot, not next season, but perhaps in a few seasons, and that's Jed Wallace, who I used to watch at Portsmouth, and it was stunning at Portsmouth. He moved to Wolves, barely got a kick. He's just gone on loan to Millwall. I think if his season kicks off at Millwall, goes back to Wolves and gets a run of games, so I think he could be an attractive proposition going forward. One thing I would like to add, it's completely off topic, but I still feel it's noteworthy. I've just read that Bolton midfielder Stuart Holden has retired today after consistent injuries. So I thought that was
the American lad.
Yes, yeah, he's just
very talented from what I saw as well. But
just had a baby, hasn't he? Not him personally, but I think I vaguely remember seeing a picture of him on social media with his first child. So yeah, maybe that's what sort of made him realise that can't go on. That's a shame because he was a good little player.
Yeah, from what I saw of him, he was really, really talented. But I suppose that's been on the wall for a few seasons now. But there you go. That was just a little detour.
Yeah, fair shout. Tom, La Liga, any players you really, really fancy or you think are prime to...
I really fancy? Ooh.
Not in that way, of course, but you fancy seeing in La Liga or indeed that you think are prime to leave it?
Prime to leave, it's more about interspersing of transfers within the league more than leaving La Liga at the moment. Players that could go out, well, Marco Asensio, obviously, massive player for Espanyol, will be returning to Real Madrid on loan. Probably not going to get in the squad, so I can see a lot of teams around Europe be looking at him. In terms of coming in, I'd love to see Pogba play in La Liga. I'd love to see a lot of players. I'd actually love to see Marek Hamšík move to Atletico Madrid. I don't know why, but I'd sort of want that to happen. Yeah, it's more, as I said, interspersing of transfers within the league of teams buying different players from different teams in La Liga more than bringing in. It's the big clubs like Real and Barca. I think you'll see a lot of movement within Real and Atletico in the summer because of the transfer ban looming. So you might see the likes of Pogba, or even though I've disregarded it, Pjanic moving to La Liga. But no, I think it'll be more with interleague, inside the league transfers rather than transfers from outside coming in.
Fair enough. And Drew, sign us off with yours, and then we'll wrap this one up.
Okay, what exactly are you asking of me here?
Just players you could see coming into the Bundesliga, or potentially, other than the ones that you've already mentioned, the ones you said you wanted to that would leave, but just any that you would really particularly personally like to see.
Andrzej Zivkovic, I've mentioned him before. Dortmund are heavily linked with him in the summer. I think he's a fantastic young talent. Serbians and Croatians seem to be producing a lot of good young players these days. So I think he has everything it takes. I think Dortmund are going to need a wide player in the summer because I do think either Royce or Aubameyang is going to go. I think he can make the step up immediately. So that's one I'd like to see for sure.
Super. Okay. Before we wrap things up, then I know John has to leave us. So just before we sign off, I'll give John the opportunity to say bye. So thank you for your time, John, and you'll be back on Monday, I'm sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've got to shoot off. I've got an early morning start, sadly.
That's all right. We've only got 2 minutes more before we wrap up, but we will let you go here. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, chaps. So
Good night,
bye-bye.
John.
Bye bye.
Right, and before I let all of our listeners go, and indeed myself, we'll just round things off with a little touch of Liga and players that I think might be worth coming in or going out. I want to focus more on the players going out because it's hard to predict players coming in. But I think Sofiane Boufal at Lille, I think, is primed for a move. Certainly, he seems to be a player that's on the radar of a lot of big European clubs, and seems to be a bit out of favour under Antonetti. So I think he could probably move on. I also think Alexander Lacazette, we've discussed him on this podcast a lot of times. It does strike me, he scored twice tonight and looked sort of slightly back to the player that we all know. But yeah, I think that he's probably going to be another one Lyon will struggle to hang on to, as well as Nabil Fekir, if he can get fit, of course, because players obviously want teams want to sign players who actually fit. But Fekir is again another one who could play in any of the top leagues. Outside of that, there's a lot of young talent in France, but not too many that will be available. One big name that could be available in the summer is PSG's Edinson Cavani, who a lot of talk surrounding him. He scored tonight, but there's a lot of suspicion that Zlatan might end up staying for PSG next summer, or indeed Ronaldo. The deal could be resurrected with the suspended transfer ban for Real. So if that happens, I would expect Cavani to be on the move. And the final one heading out, I would say, is probably Hatem Ben Arfa. Likelihood, I would suggest Serie A. He's just been fantastic for Nice. Scored the winner again tonight and just can't do anything wrong, seemingly. And just get a feeling that he might be shifting on his bike, possibly to Serie A. And as far as players coming in, it's really hard to tell because there's not many teams with too much money in Liga, is the truth. So a lot of players that will be coming in will be players that people have probably not heard of in truth. The one thing I would say is expect PSG to be fairly busy. There's a few players, mentioned Cavani, but I think Rabiot is quite keen to shift on. There's a lot of talk Lavezzi will be moving on a free. Pastore is not getting the games that maybe he would like, so he could possibly be moving back to Serie A. So that leaves quite a lot of holes in PSG's midfield. And of course, we all know they've got a lot of money. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them splash the cash on 2, maybe 3 very big names this summer. So it'd be worth keeping an eye on. So that's pretty much it for Liga, and indeed pretty much it for our discussion this evening. Unless anyone has anything pressing they want to bring up, if they do, speak now.
Nope, I'm all done.
All done. Good. Anything more from Drew or from Tom or from Ross?
Sorry, Arno.
No. Sorry, Arno. Thanks. And we should say, just for the sake of Janzeb, Yunus Mali. because he gets upset if we don't mention him on every single podcast we do. But no, thank you all very much for your time this evening, gentlemen. I know it's been a bit of a random natter, and there's been lots of us, but I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff. So thank you all very much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
No problem.
Isn't it always? We're showering people with 2 pods tomorrow. What on earth will they think? But yes, that has been the Football Hipsters podcast transfer special across all the leagues in Europe. If you want to fire us players that you think might be moving on, or players that you'd like us to cover, for example, in Hipsters Choices that you think might be transfer targets in the summer, drop us a tweet at the FH podcast, and we will do our best to accommodate you. But in the meantime, we will leave you for now. We'll be back with the English Breakfast on Sunday, back with the normal pod on Monday. We have fantastic interviews coming up soon as well from both myself and Tom. We'll announce more of those on Monday. Until then, though, we shall say those immortal words: keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy, and we'll speak to you very soon.